the chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, and host of this retreat, Your Excellencies, the governors of the Nigerian Federation, former governors here present, senators and members of the National Assembly, of the House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professors Amos Sawyer, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to begin by thanking the NGF for the honor of inviting me to be part of this very important retreat. I have always found, as resource person, rapporteur to the NGF, that the retreats are very, very thought-provoking, very useful, and I've always gone away with plenty of meat to chew after leaving here. I only hope that my little contribution today will also provide some food for thought for our governors and those who are present here. What I have done in my presentation is to highlight the focus of a project which three of us, a former chief of staff to one of the Nigerian governors, a former governor of a state, of a lander in Germany, and myself undertook for Spark DFID in April this year. I think that project is a further reflection of the commitment and the partnership of Spark to our own development in our country and with the NGF. The objective of the project was to provide support for NGF's planned transitioning out process for governors, including a guidebook, preparation of a guidebook, and a checklist to structure the process. In the process of gathering material for the project and the guidebook, we were lucky to have had very useful interactive sessions, which were as engaging as they were forthright, with 3 serving governors and 4 former governors who appreciatively and readily agreed to the request for the interaction. We also conducted our own desk research, and we found out, quite interestingly, that the problems of transitioning out of office, particularly for chief executives of either the level of president or governor, is in fact an uncharted territory in academic circles. And we therefore have to rely preeminently on the very, very useful materials we're able to get from the governors in terms of submission of the interviews. Also, as part of my introductory remarks, we'd like to thank the chairman of the NGF and for providing us, for the inspiring encouragement and support he provided us, as is always refreshingly customary with him. I also want to conclude by this section by saying that Professor Sawyer, whom I have known as a professional colleague for several years, over 40 years now, for me represents, and it is clear from his presentation, the model of grace and modesty of life in office and life after office for high public officials in our continent. Because he brings a combination of interesting and useful perspectives to bear on attitudes towards public office. And I think that is very, very reflected in his speech. Now, let me provide you with the summaries of our findings. The first one is that although we have experienced what we describe as orderly and smooth, if sometimes problematic constitutional political succession of governors at the state level since May 1999 that has been progressively institutionalized and routinized in the 36 states of the Federation. Governors transitioning out of office in this country still face serious cultural, economic, political, and psychological challenges about how to cope with life with being out of office. These challenges, we suggest, are due partly to two factors. The first one is the character of our country's political economy as the site for using political power to acquire economic power and to sustain patron-client networks. It is also partly due to what we characterize as the cutthroat character of competitive party politics and electoral politics in our country. The second finding is that we find out that there is a gap which the guidebook which we were asked to prepare will fill in our public life. And the gap arises out of the intertwined nature of the challenges which I will soon characterize of transitioning out of office in our country. The gap exists because of the absence and therefore the need for such a guide to assist governors cope better with the challenges of their transitioning out of office. I think the third finding, which I think we also ought to emphasize, is that the guidebook, the way we have approached it, places emphasis on governors transitioning out of office from the first day in office or shortly after their election. Because the gap that this is intended to fit is to close the gap between transitioning in and transitioning out. By providing this guidebook, we can then see that transitioning out and transitioning in are seamlessly linked by the fact that we say, look, governors, once immediately they are sworn in or immediately they assume office or win election, should start thinking of when they are going to go out. So that whole process of transitioning out does not just start in the penultimate year of transition, but it starts from the first day in office. So there is a connection between the two, transitioning in and transitioning out. And we're also therefore thinking that the customary transitioning in or induction program, which the NGF holds for re-elected governors and newly elected governors, should be linked with this transitioning out process that they're thinking of. And this point was well captured by one of the governors we interviewed, who says, and I'm quoting, "Plan to leave office once you are there. Governors, family, and close staff tend to forget exit day," unquote. So I think the guidebook should serve commendably as a bridge building practice between transitioning in and transitioning out, which can be replicated at the federal and local government levels in the country. In focusing on this second finding, I think it's important for us also to draw attention to the various challenges which governors face and which they tend to forget or ignore as they continue with their tenure in office. We have, under the relevant section, and I will come in terms of the structure of the book, we have identified the challenges under each of the 4 sections of the book, of the guidebook. And we now have what we call coping maxims. And these maxims may seem obvious, commonplace, or commonsensical, but they are pithy. And should be constantly borne in mind as collectively an ethical and practical guide to action by governors while in office. In this sense, the guidebook should be viewed as a kind of a pocket book for the prince, as it were, if one may quote Machiavelli, the prince which lays guidelines for survival for the prince. It's a kind of a pocket book of maxims to provide everyday points of reference for governors to use as coping mechanisms to navigate the tortuous challenges of transitioning in and out of office. Now, the next part of my finding now looks at the structure of the guidebook. And as I said, it is divided into 1, psychological and political and personal challenges, institutional cultural challenges, economic financial challenges, and life after transitioning out coping challenges. I will go briefly through each section of this structured guidebook. First, psychological and personal challenges. The questions we posed and sought to answer were the question was basically, what are these challenges that are psychological or personal? And what is their interface between, and what is the interface between the challenges and transitioning out of office, transitioning into office by governors? We highlighted, in answer to that question, we highlighted the following as the basic, the important, more important psychological and personal challenges facing governors. 1, the temptation of viewing office as being a job and not a vocation or profession with its own ethics. 2, reconciling the role of the governor as the servant of the people, sworn to serve them with need to reward loyalty and show appreciation to those who make sacrifices to ensure their election. 3, upholding the dignity of the office of governor, which the governor has sworn to do without fear or favor. 4, coping with and enjoying the allure, trappings, and comfort of the office of governor without abusing them or living in grand style. And 4, keeping eyes and ears open to detect and avoid snares set by opponents, by political opponents, and the envy of others. We then suggest the following coping maxims. And these maxims, as we itemize them, in fact, some of them are at the back of the program. They are expressions that came out of the mind of the 7 governors we had interactive actions with. And we just itemized a few of them. They are spelled out in the guidebook. Separate the office of governor from the person. Have internal satisfaction as governor that you do your best, unquote. 2, balance office with family life, quote unquote, the current governor. 3, quote, you lose track of everything that is yours. No time to stand on the balcony and think, unquote, a former governor. Then let's go to the institutional cultural challenges. The question we posed here was, which are the major aspects of the institutional cultural structure of Nigeria's politics and society post-transitioning out challenges for governors? And we noted that the challenges include 1, completion of ongoing projects. 2, documentation of tenure. 3, the process of the emergence of a successor to the governor. And 4, preparation for the incoming administration. And we then suggest that there should be some institutional cultural milestones, which we outline in the guideline, which will guide the attitude of the governors to this. Now, coping maxims that is again collected from the interviews, from expressions by interventions by the governors themselves. 1, quote, create an enabling environment for someone to tell you the truth, a former governor, unquote. 2, quote, the governor is not an emperor, but he is a servant, unquote, a former governor. 3, modify expectations because of the reality of office of governor, unquote, a former governor. And this is one thing from a former governor in the US. Good press relations can't save a poor administration, but poor press relations can spoil a good one, unquote. Then we move on to the economic and financial challenges The question we sought to find answer to here was, what role do material factors, particularly economic and financial ones, play in shaping the nature of transitioning out, transitioning in challenges? And these challenges include the following. One, failure by many governors to plan for life after office. Two, poor attitude to or lack of knowledge of personal financial planning by some governors. And three, incessant flow of requests to governors during and after leaving office for financial requests from family, relations, friends, and party. Now, again, coping maxims from interviews with the governors, quote, make life simple. Don't be seduced by the trappings of office, a former governor. Two, don't lambast your predecessor. Don't seize, quote, that is, stop their entitlements, a former governor. Three, handle state finances with business acumen. Project files, don't tell where money to find them will come from, unquote. And we also, because out of our interactions, both serving and former governors, we express unhappiness about the arbitrariness with which pension benefits, retirement benefits of governors were being handled across the 36 states. And they think that some measures should be found to reduce, if not remove, the arbitrariness in the application of these pension benefits. And we are therefore suggesting that a model that we can look at is that in South Africa, where there is an independent office to manage this pension, in the form of a contributory pension, which takes it out of the way of political office holders and makes the application less controversial and more objective. Now, the fourth section is about life after transitioning out, coping mechanisms, coping challenges. And the question we put are, what are the options that will enable transitioning out governors adjust to life in office smoothly? And the strong message that flowed consistently from the 7 governors we interviewed was that many of them regretted they took the challenges of transitioning out of office for granted, and wished that they had not, or they had been, so that they had not, overlooked them and had been reminded of them early during their tenure, so that they would be able to prepare for life after office more realistically. And the coping mechanism, the coping maxims that we could tease out from the interview sections were the following. One, you did not win a war. If you don't treat somebody according to the law, same fate will attend to you when you leave office as governor, a former governor. Two, leave the stage. Don't go back to ask the governor for favor, another former governor. Three, most governors are traumatized after leaving office, a former governor. Three, from a former governor in the US. I sat in my new office after inauguration day, and the telephone wasn't ringing. That was an unnerving experience. 4, write your autobiography or get someone to write your biography for you. 5, establish a library or activities to keep records of and preserve memorabilia from your governorship years. The last section deals with what we call transitioning out and transitioning in checklist. And we've adapted this from a checklist prepared by the National Governors Association of the United States of America. And it provides a checklist of suggested actions to smoothing the transitioning out, transitioning in process. And it is phased into pre-election action, post-election action, and post-office activities. The areas of suggested action are: 1, plan and organize for transition. 2, maintain control in completing your tenure. 3, promote continuity of government. 4, reinforce appropriate staff behavior. 5, help the incoming administration. 6, retain records and document the governor's legacy. 7, prepare staff, family, and self for transition office. So we hope that this will at least help address some of the problems that made the NGF think of asking for the guidebook to be prepared. Again, thank you for asking us to do it.